Indiana Pacers guard Tyrese Haliburton was carried off the floor by his teammates on Monday due to slipping on the Boston Celtics court. The next day he got an MRI and it was revealed that he had a grade 1 hamstring strain that is likely to sideline him for the next 2 weeks per Adrian Woj. This was late in the second quarter. He was driving to the basket on Derek White and he tried to do a spin move and his leg pretty much just gave out. And then he ended up in an awkward splits motion and ended up falling onto the ground. And obviously, as you can see in the video, he obviously knew something was wrong with his leg. In this video, I'm gonna show you what a trainer would do to prevent hamstring strains in athletes. It's impossible to bulletproof an athlete or even prevent some natural causes to happen like this, where sometimes it's just an accident, it's not that deep, but we can try to strengthen the hamstring and the muscles in the body to build as much resilience as possible and prevent injuries as much as possible. The first thing I want to look at when it comes to building hamstring strength is the ankle and the pelvis. Usually when our pelvis is tilted forward or has an anterior tilt, we will leave the hamstring over lengthened, which causes more and more inflammation, which usually leads to further injuries. This will also lead to the athlete overstriding due to the forward lean that the athlete will have because of the position of the pelvis. Now, don't get me wrong, heel striking is natural. It's going to happen in basketball and even long distance running, and it's not always the worst thing in the world. And we aren't trying to train to prevent heel striking, but when it comes from improper mechanics at the pelvis, then at this point we just have another negative stressor that's going to add excess load to the hamstrings that we want to avoid. And the excess load will eventually tear down the hamstring and lead to strains and tears. So here are some exercises to help with pelvis function so we can have a neutral pelvis, which is usually optimal for most athletes. Okay, so it's currently 20 degrees outside and I can't even get into my mini gym because I can't open the door because of how cold it is and how much snow there is outside. So we're gonna do all these exercises inside. I'm sorry, I'll show B-roll possibly of me doing the exercises if possible, doing it outside. But also it kind of shows you that you can pretty much do all these exercises in your house and still get the same type of benefits to improve hamstring strength and resilience. First one's gonna be a 90-90 hip lift. So this is really simple. You can get any type of chair, sofa, desk, whatever it is. You wanna get your knees to around 90 degrees, right? So once you're in this bent leg position, you wanna drive the heels into the ground until your lower back or your glutes get a little lift off the ground, where you kind of have like the edge of the glutes or the lower back not touching the ground at all. This is also going to activate the hamstrings at the same time, and now your pelvis will be in what we call pretty much a neutral position, right? And to make this exercise even better, we're going to place a foam roller or a soccer ball or whatever you have in between your knees, and then we want to relax. Now that we have this prime position where we're squeezing this foam roller and the hamstrings at the same time, we're going to breathe with 5 breaths. This is how you get the gains from this exercise. So you're going to do in through the nose for about 5 seconds, and then out through the nose or mouth for about 7 seconds. There's a lot of minor details in this exercise, but getting the most big bang for your buck in terms of pelvis position is gonna be really helpful for improving the function and getting rid of that anterior pelvic tilt. The next exercise is gonna be hard to do, but it's gonna be called a straight leg bound. I should have a video over here, but pretty much we're gonna be doing a leaning back scissor motion where we're trying to cross our feet as fast as possible and push back to create distance. This is really easy to teach with resistance, but if you're not strong enough for resistance, you can do body weight and think of a bounding motion, but just with a straight leg, where it's gonna be very dominated by the hamstrings and the glutes instead of the knee extensors. So you're not gonna be pushing with your quads, you're gonna be pushing with hamstrings and glutes. The next thing is overall elasticity in the posterior chain. The 3 main muscles of the hamstring are going to be the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, and the bicep femoris. And we want to improve general tendon tolerance and elasticity in this posterior chain by doing these type of exercises. This next one's gonna be a cherry picker, but it's gonna be a little bit different. Instead of regular stiffness skips, where we're landing under a center of mass, straight under, using primarily quad extension, we're going to be doing something called a little bit of overstride, right? So we're gonna be going here and then here, right? Hopefully I could get some B-roll to show the difference of these exercises, but we're gonna be trying to reach for it and then get up as high as possible. Clearly I can't show you how high to jump, right? You obviously wanna try to touch something, or if you have resistance 10 to 20% of your body weight, you could do that and try and jump as high as possible, or like the exercise is called a cherry picker, try to grab and try to reach and try to reach. to get up as high as possible. Now we want to load the eccentric portion of the glutes and the hamstrings. And in my opinion, the best way to do this is going to be the RDLs. A lot of people will also do Nordics. That's not a terrible option, but I feel like it's too difficult and very straining on the body. And honestly, the equipment you need for this type of exercise is not worth the setup or the time or the money when you could just do an RDL and get around these same results, especially if you add sprinting to it, then you have the perfect combo to have pretty much bulletproof hamstrings. So to further clarify, I would rather you do RDLs and max effort sprinting than try to put all your eggs in one basket and do Nordics. Another strength movement I want to add for the hamstrings is a straight leg hamstring isometric. Since hamstrings happen at fast speeds, we need to be able to isometrically lock up at the hamstring so we can handle and absorb a lot of forces eccentrically. This will primarily be improved through plyometrics with fast ground contact times and momentum, but isometric training is another way to overload the amortization phase that is really important for building resilience. This is a great video for preventing hamstring strains, but what if you have knee pain? You should probably watch this video right here and also subscribe so you can get more videos about athletic performance. Now the icing on the cake is going to be building full range of motion strength in this posterior chain. Exercise is going to be a barbell RDL, but like I said, can't get access to my gym, so we're gonna do a single leg dumbbell RDL. It's all the same thing. Honestly, I'll just do it in 2 legs. It's not gonna be that hard. Right, so right here, a very, very, very small bend in the knees, not even a quarter squat position, right? And then we're going to hinge at the hips, and we don't want our shins to go negative, right? So our shins are neutral right now, but if they go backwards, that's not the best thing in the world. It's better than it going forward, but we usually want to stay neutral as much as possible, right? And we're hinging and trying to get as much range of motion to get all the length and load on the glutes and hamstrings. Static stretching isn't the best thing for getting range of motion, but what's really good is loaded stretching, and loaded stretching is usually gonna come from these RDLs. We're gonna be focusing on the eccentric, so the eccentric is this lowering part. We're gonna be going about 3 to 5 seconds as slow as possible. And even if you wanna pause at this position, that's not bad either. We want neutral pelvis, neutral head. We don't wanna be looking up like this. We don't wanna be chin down like that. We wanna be as neutral as possible during this exercise. It's gonna be a basic hamstring isometric. We're gonna get a quarter squat position. We're gonna try to tilt our pelvis into a neutral position and then dig our heels into the ground to get the hamstrings and glute activated while maintaining this pelvis position. This is gonna be honestly the final piece of the cake. We're getting a lot of isometric load to the hamstrings to help improve and prime that amortization phase, which is where most of the hamstring injuries happen. ACL injuries happen here, is when you don't have the isometric strength at the tendon level. If this video helped you at all, maybe go watch this video about how to reduce knee pain, or watch one of these videos about how to become more athletic. Subscribe for more if you want to become more athletic.